the executives were given or not given monetary bonuses based on the number of white people that they refused to hire. So if they hired less white people, they got more monetary bonus. It was crazy illegal. Crazy illegal. You can't do that.
All right, we're joined today by, I'm going to call him a tech luminary, just because I think it's a good term coming out of the open source world. This is Bryan Lunduke, famously from Linux background. You had a show, the Linux Action Show.
Oh, geez, that's going back. Yeah.
Well, hey, there you go. I mean, Linux is going back. You also produced Linux Sucks. So I want to start off with Linux Sucks because I've been around Linux kind of peripherally since the 90s, mid to late 90s. It was always lingering, and I've always waited for a distro that actually just worked, that just that I didn't have to feel like I'm having to reprogram or reinvent the wheel, or can I stay out of the command line?
It's better nowadays. It's better than it was. The Linux Sucks thing was, it started, 14 years ago, something along those lines. It's been well over a decade. But basically, it started out as a big cathartic ranting session. So Linux, I used to give a lot of speeches and keynotes at tech conferences. And what I would do is I'd go to Linux festivals and conferences, and I'd get up in front of a bunch of Linux nerds, and then we would rant for a solid hour about everything that was really ticking us off about Linux right now and how terrible it is. It was just, it was a tough love sort of thing. So we did that for years. We're still doing those shows. They've taken a little different form. They've gotten a little more political over the more recent years, but that's where it kind of all started for that. Those have been a lot of fun. I've given those at some pretty. We did one at the Southern California Linux Expo. I think there was probably about 1,000 people in the audience on that one, and so we get people all worked up because they're all people that love it, but they hate it. Anything you love enough, you also hate. Like if you ask a nerd, about their favorite computer, whatever, invariably, if you say, okay, now tell me 10 things that suck about it, they will be able to just rattle them off. Here's all the things that suck about this thing I love. And that's kind of where that all started.
There's actually a term, and I can't remember, it's like Sater's Law or something like that, but it's somebody saying that no battles are stronger than those between academics.
Yes.
Sayer's Law. That might be.
Yes.
It is so perfect because that's true. They'll be arguing over the heat pattern of a particular computer build with the memory flow going in. Yeah. And how that was an utter disgrace or failure, and they're only 2% off or something.
Exactly. When you really care about something, you notice all the flaws. It's sort of like when from the political side of things, and you go back to the early days of the United States and the Federalist Papers and whatnot, and you start reading through that. And as you read through the Federalist Papers, to go from a very non-nerdy example, you start to realize they love the form of government. They love what they're doing, but they love it so much that they recognize the thousands of problems with it. And that always kind of struck me is someone, when you're trying to find out if someone's truly an expert in something, the best way to do it is to ask them, what do they hate about it? Because if they really hate a bunch of things about something, it means they really know it and they love it.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, what is it? Winston Churchill. What is it? Capitalism's a disaster, except it's better than everything else out there.
Yeah. Paraphrasing Winston Churchill, but that's about right?
100%. And you're also talking a little bit about Dunning-Krueger, I think. That the deeper you get into the experts, the more they're going to feel less confident and point out holes in everything that's going on, versus the newly converted will probably tell you how everything is actually perfect.
Exactly. Exactly. That is pretty much the gist of it. So that kind of ended up being a lot of my career. I used to be a tech executive at a bunch of different companies. Had very fancy titles, and it was very, very wonderful. But the more time I spent with it, the more I realized not just where all the bodies were buried, but all of the problems with the tech industry, with open source, with big tech, with everything else. And that's kind of how I ended up moving off to the side. And instead of running the companies, I just cover them now. So I couldn't handle being inside of them anymore. It had eaten my soul alive.
So you consider yourself then a tech journalist more than anything?
Yeah, at this point, whatever you would call this very weird job I have is probably closest to a tech journalist. Most of what I do is people reach out to me from within tech companies, whether it's IBM or Microsoft or wherever, and they say, hey, this is happening. And they want to be a whistleblower from within the company. They provide me some leaked videos or emails. I verify them and publish them and start talking publicly and doing some analysis of those things. And that's what I spend most of my time doing nowadays. And it's very, very gratifying. Coming from the world where I used to be the executives making the terrible decisions at the tech companies, now I report on those same executives making those same terrible decisions. So I kind of know, I can kind of read between the lines because I used to have those jobs, and it is very, very gratifying being able to do that now instead of being in the companies.
Okay, so I did not realize you were doing it to such a degree. It sounds similar to Robbie Starbucks. I'm not sure.
I do know
you guys
Robbie.
Are in alignment at all, or
so it's interesting. So I got a little story for you if you want this one. So there's been some issues with IBM and IBM subsidiary companies. One of them is called Red Hat. There's a couple others as well. And IBM has been really focused on DEI and diversity politics within their hiring and firing programs for quite some years now. About a year and a half ago, some of your viewers may remember, James O'Keefe and I published a huge number of leaked videos. James O'Keefe published a video of the IBM CEO on camera talking about how they hire and fire people based on skin color. And I followed that up with a series of leaks from the CEO of some of their sub companies talking about the same things and presentations that they made. They had an anti-whiteness training presentation, and I published the slide deck for that. And it was just a mountain, hundreds and hundreds of pages of emails and presentations and videos and everything else coming out. And that resulted in 3 lawsuits against IBM and their subsidiaries.
I think that one of the lawsuits is a friend of mine, Robert Barnes.
Yeah, Barnes is involved in the one against Red Hat. Oh, gosh. I'm trying to remember. Yeah. Robert Barnes is involved with one, and America First Legal is involved in the other 2. And those lawsuits are ongoing right now. The state of Missouri the Attorney General filed a lawsuit also against IBM. Okay. That one's in appeals right now. So these lawsuits were going based on a lot of this leaked material that got out there. And it's been a crazy ride over the last year and a half, getting all of this material and publishing it out there. And there have been these groups of employees within IBM and Red Hat and everything else who've been pushing back against it. They've been saying, we don't like these DEI politics. There was even policies in IBM where the executives were given or not given monetary bonuses based on the number of white people that they refused to hire. So if they hired less white people, they got more monetary bonus. It was crazy illegal, crazy illegal. You can't do that. But they were doing it, and we had them on video talking about it and everything else. And I was covering this just nonstop over the last year during 2024. And then President Trump got elected. After Election Day last November, things started to change with inside IBM. They started to have serious meetings about, okay, the writing's on the wall here. Maybe we should change our DEI programs before we lose all of our government contracts, right? Because the clock is ticking. He takes office in January. So these meetings started going on, and I started getting increasing numbers of people whistleblowing from within inside IBM and the various other companies that they own, talking about how it looks like they were going to make changes. Then Inauguration Day comes, and the famous barrage of Trump executive orders, right? And famously, there was one specific executive order that made it so government agencies could no longer do business with corporations that had significant DEI policies. So when that hit, IBM's like, well, this is IBM. They do a ton of business with the government, and they would not do anything to risk that money. So this was in January. They made a decision. We're getting rid of those diversity quota programs entirely. We're going to scale back DEI. We're not even going to say the words DEI anymore, right? They're going to start scaling stuff back because they can't risk those billions. Those are billions of dollars. So I started covering that some more, and then last month, it was early last month, I started getting leaked emails from within inside IBM where they officially pulled the trigger. They've made the announcement. We're axing all the DEI policies. And man, there were so many people involved with that. There was the shareholder groups were having propositions during their annual shareholders meetings. There were the internal corporate groups. Trump was pushing back. Myself and James O'Keefe were publishing nonstop leaked materials. And then after I published the leaked announcement, right? I had the big woohoo and reveal on that. A couple days later, after a couple of my fans and I had sent that information over to Robbie Starbuck made a declaration that he did it all. And he came out and declared to the world that he had forced IBM to stop doing DEI policies and to stop diversity hiring because he emailed them. And so I messaged Robbie and I'm like, dude, I'm a fan. I'm against the DEI in corporate. You know, I think we're on board on the same page here, but I'm real intimately familiar with this one. And if I were to make a list of the 10 people who were actively involved with this, I wouldn't even be on that list. Like, I just reported on it. And you certainly aren't anywhere on that list because this was the first time you've ever even publicly mentioned it. What's going on here? And he got real angry. So he kind of took credit for it. And I don't know, it kind of called into question for me how much he really is doing with these other companies. I didn't like that because I was really liking when I see people like Robbie Starbuck pushing back against what are clearly illegal, diversity quotas and whatnot within companies. I like that, and that's good. But I don't like that he kind of came out and took credit away from a lot of other people. And that was a little bit disheartening to hear. But the good news of all that story is that IBM kind of set a precedent within the tech industry to begin migrating away from those DEI policies. We just saw that with Adobe and a bunch of other companies as well. So the overall story is a good one.
Are you paying attention to it, though? And I'm sorry to push back at all, but I know that there's been some movement within companies to just change the name.
Bridge.
Bridge, thank you very much. Bridge 2.0, I think, is literally out there. And now they're, instead of DEI, it's belonging, respect, and fairness. So they've got new code words.
Yeah, belonging is a key one.
Yeah.
In fact, I just published a little thing on X. I'm trying to follow up on this. A couple of tech companies are now, instead of having DEI training programs, they're having inclusion and belonging training programs. They've changed the wording on some of that.
Like any good communist would. And this does come out of communism. They rewrite, change names, politically correct, going back to Mao.
It does.
All of these things do come out of that.
I want to toss in a little something else, and I don't mean to derail us completely here.
Why not?
But on the Marxism side of things, you're familiar with the Firefox web browser, right?
Yeah, the CEO that got fired over
Brendan Ike, a friend of mine got fired. So the Firefox web browser is owned by a foundation called the Mozilla Foundation, right?
Right.
Last year, like around end of November, early December, they rebranded their organization not as a web standards web browser company anymore. They are now, and this is a real thing, I'm gonna just try and keep a straight face with this. They're a global crew of activists. That is now their mission. And they held an event at a luxury resort in Zambia. Let me see. Hold on a second. Do I have the exact phrasing here? I think I got it over here somewhere. Here it is. They held an event in Zambia focused on feminist, decolonial, LGBTQIA climate justice.
I was waiting for climate.
Using artificial intelligence. That is an actual... They held a luxury training event around that. And the rest of the event was specifically about Marxist ideals. And the crazy thing to me with it was, that was their words. They described it as Marxist, not me. Like, that wasn't me going, well, that seems pretty Marxist, right? I mean, you and I both see things and we're like, well, that looks pretty Marxist to me. But they were bluntly declaring it after they created their feminist, decolonial, LGBT, climate, whatever, their buzzword soup of an event. They declared that it was a Marxist event. And what amazed me about that was, here we had a billions of dollars in annual revenue organization and tech foundation openly declaring that they are now Marxist activists. And they were proud of that. And they were excited about that. And that was the future for them. And it's amazing to see them say that out loud, because that's not, a bunch of guys on Fox News saying, oh, they're a bunch of Marxists. No, that's what they view themselves as. And I think that's fascinating and worth pointing at and just saying that's what they view themselves as. It's worth noting. Anyway,
it's actually, it's not just a noting. I find it personally frightening.
Terrifying.
Like a lot of things that you dug up at IBM and stuff, there was a time there wouldn't be those emails. If I look at how things are being reported, they're saying the quiet part out loud. They say we're Marxists.
Yes.
It is like we've crossed completely over. And we're not even hiding the ball anymore with a lot of these companies and the open source community. There's a lot of overlap with quote unquote social justice and open source community. And I think it makes sense because, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but open source is very tightly tied into the university system. And the university system is very Marxist in a lot of their beliefs and principles. When it comes to the people who work there are dependent on the government as they see it in many ways. So it sort of makes sense. They go from mommy and daddy to the university professor, and they expect the state to take care of them.
And really, when you look at the leaders within the world of open source software, which, I mean, it really impacts everything, all big tech and everything. You look at individuals like Richard Stallman, who is a democratic socialist, Linus Torvalds, the creator of Linux, who describes himself as a communist. He's an American citizen now, but he more aligns with the Communist
Bernie,
Party.
He'd line up really well with Bernie because he's got that whole Scandinavian background.
And his father was a communist, and he views himself as a woke communist, essentially. Like, he views himself
That's kind of
that
redundant.
Yeah, a little bit. And so when you look at the leadership of most of open source does trend that way. There are exceptions, though. I mean, like the old CEO of Mozilla, Brendan Ike, he might even be far right of where I'm at. And
Mark Andreessen.
Mark Andreessen from Netscape. There are luminaries. I mean, the creator of JavaScript is a very conservative guy, right? So there are there are the momentary little blips of
John
conservativeness.
McAfee, who I interviewed.
Yes. May he rest in peace. In theory. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, so there are a couple of those out there, but there's not many. There's really not many. Most are very, not just left, not Democrat, not even Green Party, but some sort of a leftist, sort of extremist activist. There's a very strong element of that within the world of open source and within the world of tech journalism in general. It is very hard to find tech news outlets that will even touch most stories that don't adhere to their political activism ideology, which is a sad thing, because a lot of the big stories, like the IBM stories and the Adobe stories and the stories about Microsoft and transgender toddlers, and there's so many weird stories out there that just don't get touched because they're in the tech world. So the mainstream journalists don't touch it, right? Because they don't know. And the political journalists, by and large, don't touch it because, again, it's the nerds in the tech world. And so it's left to the tech journalists to cover it. But there's only like 3 working tech journalists that aren't extreme leftists. So they just don't. It doesn't get, if it doesn't get covered by me or 1 or 2 others, it just doesn't get covered at all. And that's kind of a sad thing. It's a sad state of affairs for all of tech journalism and all of open source to be in, but it's where we're at.
Oh, it's even worse than that, in my opinion, because I've interviewed Robert Epstein as an example,
Yep.
and others. These same people in the same mentality are currently training AI.
Yeah.
They're currently training us with the information that's coming out, if you will. And, stop me anytime that I'm incorrect, but I am extremely concerned about quote unquote guardrails and things of that sort being put in with the ChatGPTs of the world and whatnot. And I run into them constantly. I mean, constantly, just talk about things like the Kennedy assassination, because yes, I do just go into a lot of conspiracies, but I run into it. It's like butting heads. I'm being it's like a school marm answering me half the time. Like, you really need to watch what you're asking or take a special consideration of this comment. And I don't think people understand the degree of mind control that is actually occurring here.
So it's when we look at the AI stuff, what really matters in the AI system is all the training data. And if the training data is all one-sided politically, that's what the output is going to be. So like let's say we want to talk about something related to Apple computer, right? So we want to talk about Apple related products. If all of the coverage that is out there is all one-sided and certain topics are just never touched, like let's say slave labor in China or things like that, right? If those things aren't touched, the algorithm in the system, right, the actual training data will result in that just not coming out. And as more content is generated by AI, because at this point, over 50% of all of the articles that people read in the tech news world are AI generated. That means that it takes stuff that is from a leftist activist point of view, written by a human, fed into an AI system that exports a leftist activist article based on that system. Then the next round of AI is trained on those AI generated articles.
It is literally an echo chamber.
It is an echo chamber, and it gets worse and worse. It's like playing a game of Japanese telephone, but where there's always a political bias.
But that's by design.
So yes, it's by design, but it's also just fundamentally the idea, right? It's one of those situations where the way large language model AI systems work, that's how it can work. And there really is no fundamentally good way to do it, just from an engineering standpoint, where that problem doesn't exist. So yes, certain companies like OpenAI and a few others, they have a political bias. Undoubtedly. We've talked to them enough. We've seen the results of their work. They do have a political bias. But even if they didn't, even if they were trying real hard to be real neutral on it, they're still going to have the same problem, because at least in certain industries, certain news topics, there's already such an inherent bias in the stuff that human beings have covered and reported and written, that the training data is based on that. So it's always going to be a never-ending cycle of the bad content we have right now. It's just now going to get worse. That is just by design. Just to throw this out there, because this is fun. My name is one of 7 names that ChatGPT is not allowed to say. If you use my full name, Bryan Lunduke, it makes ChatGPT have a stroke. It throws up a red error message and just errors out and says, you can't continue this conversation. Yeah. I wanted to see how this functioned. And so I started working with OpenAI, ChatGPT, I think it was last December. And it was saying all sorts of just crazy nonsense about me, right? It was having like a mushroom fueled hallucination. It said, what did it say? It said I had a husband named Eric. I had 2 club feet. Like, it just had just bizarre random facts that the LLM systems, they tend to hallucinate a little bit, right? They combine stuff together. And so I contacted them and I said, look, since your system is publishing this, based on current law, you can be held liable for this unless you take action against it. So what I told them was, you have 30 days. You have to find a way to make it so your system doesn't make these statements about me. The way they responded to that was simply to make it so that there's my name is now one of 7 in a filter list, where if you type my full name, it throws an error and it just won't respond. You can still find ways around
memory
that.
Hold. Congratulations.
Yeah. I've memory hold myself on purpose through ChatGPT. Tierney and a few others have similar things, but it's very bizarre. It's very bizarre how it all works. Grok over on X is a little bit better in that it trains off of X posted data, which is more chaotic. So it has a little bit of anyway, it's a little better.
It's a little better. It's not perfect, because obviously there's plenty of idiots and trolls and everything else that are
more than a few. Yeah.
But ChatGPT, one of its main sources was Reddit, until Reddit caught on.
Yeah.
And that, I think, was horrible, because Reddit is a cesspool of leftist wackiness. I don't know what's worse, Tumblr or Reddit. It's like it's close competition.
I put Reddit on top, man. Reddit is just the worst.
I'm going to say they are too, because they're bigger. But that's about it, because Tumblr is plenty of ridiculousness. Now, Grok, on the other hand, Grok is pretty good. There's still issues in there. I like what Elon has done with it, and I always admire when I don't see something coming and I get sucker punched, if you will. But Elon, when he bought Twitter, I did not think as far ahead as I think he did. I think he was planning this whole time, where he bought Twitter, which was pretty much a fire sale price anyway. I mean, he overpaid for it, whatever it was. But it wasn't just a matter of controlling the narrative and the topics all around. Instead of Bezos buying Washington Post, Elon saying, "Hold my beer, I'll just buy a whole social media network," which was impressive. But I didn't see Grok coming, and I didn't even think about it. Elon pulled the most brilliant move in the world, because he now has his training farm of X.
Yep.
And everybody using X is automatically opted into training Grok. They have no choice, no say in the matter.
And it's all up to date.
It's always up to date. Yeah, it's the most current data out there, versus like Reddit. Everybody was locking down their sites left and right, saying, "Holy shit, ChatGPT's been scraping us for years now. Stop it. Stop the scraping." Well, now he found an elegant workaround. So now he's got this beautiful training farm.
It was smart. I mean, it was a shrewd move, no doubt about it. And there's a lot of craziness on X, but because it's wide-ranging craziness, I think they've had a little bit better of a time in fine-tuning their models to take in all of that training data and actually produce somewhat of a more accurate result, because it's wide-ranging crazy instead of isolated one side, one channel crazy. And so it seems like the results have been better so far. We'll see where it goes over the coming years as the training data grows and grows and grows. But so far, I'm actually kind of impressed with it. I mean, I'm very much skeptical of all things AI and large language model related. But as far as they go, X ain't bad so far.
It's not, and I am curious too, because there's, like, for example, community notes. It was a great idea that has some problems in it because there's people brigading it and working the system.
Yeah.
However, I'm in it, and
Same.
I don't write that many notes, but I love it because every time I see an X post that's like catnip to me, I'm like, okay, that's just too perfect. Let me look why it's not real. You know, it's like if something agrees with me politically or in my mind so perfectly, it's probably bullshit. Because it's never clean. Right? It's always a little bit messy.
always is.
Yeah, I find it super helpful that even people who are, quote, haters of whoever posted it are dropping an article in there, and now they've done research for me and saved me some time. I can go look at the article and go, oh, yeah, it does look like it's bullshit. Or, oh, yeah. And I can read the fight that's going on in community notes, and I'm hoping that they're using that to help train Grok too, because I think that'll enhance it even more.
I think they are. I think the community note system is part of Grok, as part of the Grok data set. I believe so. I might be wrong, but I think so.
Well, that I think will help a great deal, because then now that's targeting the data specifically, and we can get rid of Wikipedia or Wikipedia.
Please.
Ultimately.
Please. Oh, man. Oh, that would be phenomenal.
All right. So now while we're talking about most hated companies in the world.
Okay.
Let's go with somebody who's continuing, I think, to be number one, and that's Adobe. Adobe seems to, they have managed to wipe out, I think, any goodwill that anybody has had for them over time. Especially, I mean, they practically invented the subscription service. Now, obviously, they didn't. But in terms of wide-scale usage of it, nobody used it as effectively as they did. Microsoft followed suit with Office 365. Yep. But I think everybody should give Adobe the blame or credit. You pick your side.
Yeah.
But they rolled out subscription services, essentially shut down all the licenses that people had. I wrote a book on Macromedia, MX 2004, for example, and that was the time I bought it and I owned the suite. And Adobe, after that, they got rid of all of that, like right around the time that happened, and they acquired Macromedia. But they seem to be getting even worse. Now they are not only almost a usury charges for the subscription service. I mean, it's incredibly expensive to keep up with it. It's like $60 a month, I think, on average, if you wanted to have the suite. And they are adding an AI, but they're training the AI on your work, on the people's work. So Adobe has artists, and artists already are feeling completely threatened about their work getting stolen. Like, you've done a comic book. This has to scare you completely.
It's so tone deaf, and it's a massive failure to read the room. You know, it's absolutely ridiculous. And then they have the thing where, you know, you get charged for canceling subscriptions. You get, I mean, they do seem to do everything they can do to really just cheese off every potential customer that they've got. It is absolutely amazing. So
I think they went to the Comcast customer service school.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thankfully, I haven't had Comcast for years, but yes. Oh Lord. And now they fight back against all criticism by issuing copyright claims and everything else, and it's been ridiculous. It's been utterly
tell
ridiculous.
us, because you specifically have been a victim of this behavior. So can you tell us what's going on right now between you and Adobe?
Sure. Short story. So it's all really evolves from the DEI stuff, right? So as all these companies are realizing they have to stop having racist hiring quotas because otherwise they can't work with the government and they're going to have problems. They are just stumbling over themselves to get rid of them. But the problem they encounter is that they have to do so in a way that doesn't really piss off the activists within their company that have really promoted those DEI policies. So they have to kind of ride that fence. Adobe has been one of the more woke of the companies. So last year, if you look through all of their public filings, even their SEC and stock filings were about diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's like, what does that have to do with your shareholder value? I don't know, but they included in there anyway. I think DEI is mentioned something like 20 or 30 times in last year's SEC filings, more than any other topic. This year, none, right? All of it went away. So all of their financial filings, their annual reports, their SEC filings, the word diversity doesn't exist, doesn't get mentioned even one time. Massive change, right? And so I've been looking at that thinking, okay, any moment now, Adobe is going to cancel their DEI policies because IBM did it and a whole bunch of other companies are clearly doing it. This is Adobe trying to quietly get rid of DEI and then somehow quietly announce it so it doesn't really anger the activists within the company. So I start talking about that and I reached out to contacts, and some whistleblowers with inside of Adobe provided me with a video of their annual company meeting that occurred about 2 weeks ago. And during their annual company meeting, their CEO and their CPO, which is their Chief People Officer, which is a very real role. It is a C-level executive role, the people officer, got on stage and they talked about how they were going to basically roll back all their diversity quotas. And I published that video because newsworthy, and I'm just going to read this quote to you because the quote is amazing. It is just one of my favorite quotes I've seen in a long time. This is, again, their Chief People Officer of Adobe. We have never hired based on quotas, but going forward, we will discontinue the practice. End quote. So they start talking about how they're going to roll back a lot of their DEI programs. They're going to rename some of them, which is where some of that bridge stuff comes in. So it's not going away entirely, but the one thing that's worth noting is that a lot of the measurable things are being removed, like diversity quotas. Like we would like to have 30% people be of this particular race, which IBM and many others have been sued about. They're getting rid of a lot of the things that are measurable. That's an overall win, right? I mean, getting rid of those sorts of things is a distinct win against the DEI stuff, even if they are still keeping some of the other things around. So I published this video, and that made Adobe very angry. Adobe issued a copyright takedown claim on YouTube for 2 of my videos. Now, here's where it got a little weird. So one of the videos was the one that included their private, never published publicly, all hands meeting, right? Now, I had nothing to do with getting that video. It was supplied to me by an anonymous whistleblower within the company, and I published it. Because it is very much newsworthy and is presented as news, it falls, under Section 107 of Copyright Act for fair use. Adobe knows that, right? They know that. Their lawyers aren't that dumb. They have a whole army of well-paid, very well-trained lawyers. They're very well aware. But that video is in there, right? So they claim, oh, this video is in there. That all hands meeting is ours. So that was their claim. The second video that they had taken down of mine did not have that video in it at all. It was just simply me being critical of them. But they lied to YouTube in order to get it taken down. They said this contains our copyrighted video also. It didn't. And they knew, and they had to swear that they evaluated the video when they talked to YouTube. So this happened. And I reached out to Adobe. I reached out to their CEO, their marketing teams, their press teams, the social media contact who was the point contact email for this takedown notice that was sent. And I said, you know what, you guys, you might want to rethink this. I'm paraphrasing myself, but I'm like, this wasn't the best move. I'm going to go ahead and give you a moment. Maybe think about whether or not you really want this out there. Because in my mind, I'm like, did Adobe just Streisand affect themselves? I mean, this was not the biggest news story in the world because there was several tech companies all rescinding DEI. I'm like, okay, it's worth noting. It's important to cover. And it's definitely in the public interest of a publicly traded company changes hiring practices. Okay, worth noting. But it's not going to get me 1 million views, right? It's just simply going to be news that's important to have out there. But now that Adobe is making it clear that they're going to misuse and abuse the copyright law in order to silence a tech journalist who's being critical of them, well, now that's the story. And now Adobe's just a bad guy who doesn't want anyone to criticize them, will abuse the law, lie in order to silence a journalist, and now a whole lot more people are going to go check out the leaked video, which is published on a half dozen different platforms because they only filed a copyright takedown on YouTube. And it's a strange maneuver. After
I want to point out to a lot of people who are just saying, oh, that's crazy, it's dumb, and obviously he'll win in fair use. Folks, keep in mind that fair use is an affirmative defense. And what I mean by that is if I literally say, you're using my material, and I go after Bryan Lunduke, falsely or not, and I say, you've got to take it down, he can respond fair use, and I'll say, we're going to court.
Yes.
And if I have a legal team that's already on staff, I can bankrupt somebody if I have enough lawyers to just keep hammering them. So even if they have a completely legitimate fair use defense, always keep in mind that they have to pay court fees. They have to file. They have, a company can run an independent journalist like you into the ground.
Yeah. The thing I like to point out to people about this is, because many people have said, Lunduke, you should sue Adobe, right? And would I have a case there? Potentially. But the problem is if I sue Adobe and I'm coming after them, what is Adobe going to do? They're going to go back to the judge and they're going to say, Judge, don't let this Lunduke guy talk about this case or anything related to this case publicly. Which means I would potentially be gagged from talking about anything about Adobe or any company that does business with Adobe. And that could end up being a good half of the tech industry, which means that I would sit here on my thumbs and not be able to talk about not just the case, but any other tech news related to those companies. And that, it's a silencing thing.
Hold on, not to mention discovery. And if you do this, now you're going to out your anonymous sources potentially who are depending on you for safety because you can't hide from the discovery. If you're going after them, they'll come at you for discovery. Oh, yeah, who told you that? Who leaked that video? Where'd it go? And all of a sudden they get everything they want. And again, they already have the legal team on staff. They're already paying them.
They already are, right? And I'm just a guy. Right? This is my full-time job, right? This isn't something I do in my spare time, but just the same, I'm not a mega millionaire here, right? So I don't have the funds to fight this, let alone survive the potential gagging that would come about because of it. And so realistically for me, I'm not going after Adobe, at least not at this point. What I'm saying is I filed a counterclaim because I don't think Adobe wants to take this further. If I'm Adobe, and if it's easy for me to put a little bit of pressure on and get the videos taken down, sure. Okay, bad move, but I can see where they'd want to do that. But what I really want to, because their next step now is they have 12 business days from my filing to respond with legal action. So they now have a ticking clock where they really need to respond legally. Otherwise, they still can later, but it gets much more difficult. They've really got a ticking clock here. But now if they respond with legal action, because they're the ones filing suit against me around a specific set of content, it becomes a little bit trickier for them to gag me. Not impossible. Obviously, they would still try. Obviously, they would. But it makes it so that the story then is not, oh, a journalist defends himself, but Adobe attacks a journalist. And so if Adobe wants to attack a journalist, if they really want to fight in the courts to silence a journalist, great, go for it. Would that harm my business?
No, it'll help you because that's going to increase your popularity. No, honestly, if Adobe's really coming after you in that, now suddenly Megyn Kelly may want to talk to you.
Well,
and other people, so it's going to raise your profile up.
The problem
is they're trying to push you down.
It is, you're right. From a certain standpoint, it's the, if you strike me down, I will become more powerful than you could possibly imagine, Star Wars sort of reference, right? So, and there is some truth to that. But on the flip side, it would also mean that for a certain period of time, I would have a difficult time covering a number of topics. And I don't want that to happen. As it is right now, I'm not encumbered by anything, right? There's no standing NDAs that have not expired. I don't have any confidential, I can talk about anything. And no company, advertises with my shows, which means I'm free to talk. I can run my mouth about whatever topic I want. I love it, right? I do not want that to change. And so what I'm putting this out there is saying the ball is in Adobe's court. They can choose, and I think what they're going to choose is to just let it peter out. I think my guess is they probably will just not do anything and see if the story slowly goes away. If I were them, that's probably what I'd do. Either that or contact me and say, oh, sorry, we made a mistake. We thought this was something else. My bad. Whatever. Make some sort of stupid cockamamie apology and just make it go away, right? But I don't think they're going to file suit. I would be surprised if they did. If they do, I will stand on top of the mountain and tell everyone that they filed suit, because at the very least, I can do that. No matter what happens, I can still say this suit exists.
Well, they've already had an effect on the story. Okay, so one, I think they're probably, not going to do anything and just let it run out. Your video will suddenly go back live. The strike will be removed. All the standard stuff. But keep this in mind, you already have quieted down on Adobe on YouTube because they got 2. One more, your channel's gone. So that's the game. Even if they let it run out, and they may think, okay, so we'll just strike him again if he says something else. So we'll let it run out, and you're pretty quiet on it other than X or wherever you're talking. And they may see it have been totally worth it to them, where they could take your video. They've shut you up essentially on YouTube because you can't do any more. They'll claim you a third time. Your channel will be gone. So you got to tread carefully for a month, essentially, because that's about what it takes to, resolve these things.
It's interesting, though. So I think that was their thinking. I think you're absolutely right. I think that was the thought. I think, though, they were not fully aware of maybe necessarily how I publish. So for me, YouTube is the number 5 platform that I publish on. And so, the podcast is bigger, X is bigger, my locals is bigger. And so shutting down a YouTube video for me is annoying. I don't like it. It is harmful to my business. But they made no efforts to shut me down anywhere else. And I think that's really because the system with YouTube is kind of automated. If they issue a copyright claim against a YouTube video, it just instantly starts a process and it instantly goes offline. Whereas a lot of the other platforms, like if they issue a copyright claim on X, it goes to like a review committee. You know what I mean? It's a little bit of a different sort of a deal. And I think that they were kind of counting on that. They were saying, okay, we'll issue the copyright claim. It'll take the videos down. Hopefully it'll take him down for long enough, even if he files a counterclaim, that it will make the story get to less people.
That's the thing, is to stifle the story. And YouTube, though, while you mentioned that it may be your fifth platform, in terms of the power and reach of a story getting out of hand, YouTube, if like a Marquez Brownlee or something, if somebody picks up, let's say Louis Rossman, he's probably in same mental alignment as you are on the industry, he could pick that up. So this is kind of also to squash it on the most dangerous platform, even though you're not as big. It's also warning other people because they're following you on X and they know that you got claimed by Adobe. So if they run the clip, great. Does that mean Adobe's going to hit them too?
Probably.
Probably. And I'm actually, I might be testing that theory with this video here when it goes out.
You want a copy of the video?
Yes, please.
You're more than welcome to run it on yours as well. It'll be interesting to see what happens. So what are we waiting here? It's till is it May 12th or May 14th, something like that, is really kind of the clock deadline for Adobe to do something about this. Mm-hmm. We'll see what they do. I'm not 100% certain. I think it's going to be quiet for a few days. So we'll see what happens. So far, nothing. Absolutely nothing. I have not heard a single word from Adobe outside of them taking the videos down, making the copyright claim. That's been it. They have not responded to any attempts at communication thus far. So who knows? Who knows?
Well, hopefully, I mean, as hate as they are right now, I mean, I feel like Adobe. One of my favorite quotations is Hemingway's, "How did you go bankrupt? Slowly at first, and then suddenly." And I think Adobe may be in trouble. They've done a lot of damage to themselves. Now, they're such a behemoth that it's like there's so much cash in reserve every which direction, blah, blah, blah. It's not like they're going to go out of business tomorrow. However, more and more and more people have been fleeing that platform, picking up alternative software. You're in the open source world. You probably, what is it? Affinity, I think, has done very well. Even Pixelmator just got bought by Apple, which I thought was an interesting move. Why would that? Tells me that there's a little bit more going on here. I think that Apple may be getting ready to jettison ties to Adobe, potentially over time. And then with the AI influx, they're not ahead on AI. They're kind of middle of the pack or even low in that regard. So if you take all of these things adding up together, I don't know how much longer Adobe is going to be the player that it is.
They're in a tricky position. There's no doubt about it. And they're not in a good position to make everyone mad. They really need to regain some goodwill. Because they've been hemorrhaging goodwill for years now, and it's gotten to a point where everyone you talk to is like, well, yeah, you hate Adobe. It's like,
they're hostages. They treat their customers like the customers feel like they're hostages, and there was no real alternative. But now
it's
there
amazing.
are alternatives.
There are.
DaVinci Resolve for video editing, as an example, has really stormed.
It's come a long ways. Yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it. And there are plenty of options, and people are moving away from Adobe products. I think they're absolutely seeing that. And I do think it's fascinating that they chose to do the takedown on this particular video, though, because the statements that they made were not illegal statements. They were weird, but they really were reflecting the actual change of their corporate policies. So they simply don't want people talking about their new corporate policies. And I think that's the fascinating thing to me, because they were really just taking video takedowns of their corporate policies. And I think that says something. I don't know if that's that they're terrified of the organizations, the organized individuals within their company who have pushed for the DEI policies and what they might do. I don't know if that means we've got rogue individuals acting with inside the company who are fighting against the takedown of DEI. Who knows? But it seems chaotic to me that a company would object so strongly to statements from the CEO, which they recorded and were proud of. Right? It seems strange. Like I in the past, I've covered, Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, making statements. Well, they're not going to issue takedowns because the CEO made the statements. If the CEO made the statement, the CEO made the statement. We're not upset about that, right? And so it's strange that Adobe would say, no, you can't see what our CEO said to the entire company. It's bizarre.
I think
it's a bizarre strategy.
Skinned. I think they're thin-skinned as
Maybe.
an organization. And Microsoft, that was a great example. I mean, honestly, they wouldn't care. They fail more often than they ever succeed. I mean, they fail left and right, but still are banking the money. Yeah, it's a fascinating, deal. So,
and IBM and Red Hat. I published videos from both IBM and Red Hat CEOs in the last year that were the same sort of things. All hands company meetings. IBM CEO, Red Hat CEO. In those videos, they made statements about them conducting illegal policies. Right? Those videos actually got used in court cases. Some of them, and even then, there was no copyright takedown on them. Like IBM didn't reach out and say, you can't publish that. No, it was, they stood behind it because their CEO said it, right? Like, what are they getting? That's silly. They're not going to win that battle. They're just going to look bad. And now the story's going to be IBM silences journalist by misusing copyright law. Like, they're not going to go down that road. They're not that dumb. But apparently Adobe is. Adobe does go down that road. It's fascinating to me that they would choose to do that, considering they're a company who works so closely with artists, who are so concerned about copyright law.
Actually,
and
because
yet they screw up so much.
I think that might be it. If you get into the hardcore artist space, they tend to be extremely leftist, like the comic book world.
That's true. It's true.
If we're going to get into woke, they may be terrified that the majority of their users are quote unquote woke, and often among the most vocal and violent. I'm sorry to say there is a very definite violent contingent within the woke world, and sadly we're seeing it coming out more and more. By the way, that goes back to Marxism. And anyway,
it sure does, doesn't it?
History. There's a history for it. So, Bryan, this has been fantastic. I love just hanging out, chatting with you. I normally ask this question every interview. I'm not sure if it'll work right, but it's
fire away, man.
What is the one question I should have asked you, but I neglected to?
Oh, heavens. We've covered so many friggin' topics. You covered it well. There's so much to talk about. I mean, the reality is there are so many topics, so many in the world of big tech foundations, open source, the whole world of computing that don't get covered so much. I mean, today we scratched the surface. We looked at the tip of the iceberg. So I appreciate you and a few others starting to really sort of cover a lot of these things. And I hope we can just keep that ball rolling, because man, The lack of coverage of so many of these stories by the tech news media is insane to me. Because, I mean, these are so big. Tech company silences tech journalists. That's a huge story. IBM, the 800-pound gorilla of tech, having hiring quotas to hire less white people. That's a big story. Netflix saying, let's not hire white people if there's any non-white people. That's a big story. And yet, CNET, Wired, Verge, Gizmodo, any random tech news website, they won't cover it at all. At all. They will fight tooth and nail to do anything they can but cover the stories. And it's amazing to me that they've gotten away with it for as long as they have. So anything we can do to get these stories out to people, the biggest, most impactful news stories in the tech world are not being told. But we got to talk about some of them today, so that makes me happy.
Well, that's awesome. And I think I might want to revisit this concept with you later if you're open to it. But I think the solution could be another Gamergate, but focused on tech.
Well, I'm sure if it happens, I'll be called a Nazi during that. Yeah.
Aren't you already?
If it's a day that ends in Y, someone somewhere is calling me a Nazi. It's just how it goes. I can't get away from it. But yeah, anyway. So for anyone who wants to follow my stuff, Lunduke.com. I got a little promo in there. Nice.
No, absolutely. And I encourage everybody to check you out, follow you on X, wherever you are. And Bryan, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Eric. Keep it up, man.